Hello, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Hopefully boys and girls who are of the proper age to be watching this show. My name is Emily Sophia, and I'm going to be breaking down for you guys the latest and greatest sneak peeks for the second season of Bates Motel. Because, you know, if you're anything like myself, pretty much all that you really concern yourself with in life is, you know, budding serial killers and the life shenanigans they go through. Because, you know, the reason you watch a show like this is to either completely assume the life struggles of fictional characters and just lose yourself in that happy world, or to see your own struggles in a much better light, considering yours probably don't look anything like theirs. At least you better hope not. If that is the case, give me a call and I'll walk you through it, because I don't want you to be dealing with any of this business that's going on here. So I'm going to be breaking down for you 3 of the latest little trailers that A&E has released for the new season. I'll start off with the newest release, which dropped just a couple days ago, and it's a little video about Miss Watson, if you guys remember that lovely character from the first season. So we're kind of getting back into that mystery of her circumstances, and then I'll go ahead and talk about the first short trailer for the second season, only about 30 seconds long there, and then they released another sort of trailer slash behind the scenes featurette, which is longer and contains a lot of really interesting, juicy little tidbits for us to break down into bite-sized morsels. So we're going to go through all of that. So there's going to be a lot of spoilers along the way, and just so you guys know, a couple of my other most recent videos I did a review of The Wolf Among Us, which is a fantastic video game by Telltale Games. If you've never played it, still check out that vlog, because I have a spoiler-free section in which I kind of break down for you what it's about without telling you what happens. And then I've got some other videos as well that I've done recently, and you can check out the links for those in the description. Oh yes, and I also break down the new trailer for Hannibal's second season as well, which is kind of maddening stuff. So I'd love for you guys to look at that too. But without further ado, let's talk Bates Motel. Let us check into the insanity. So, first we'll go ahead and talk about, in spoiler alerts, lots of spoilers. I'm going to start off at the top with a big one, which is the fact that Miss Watson was brutally murdered at the end of last season. And we're all trying to figure out who done it, even though I think that there's a general consensus that we know who our guy is. The question is who's going to end up taking the blame for it, because I'm guessing that A&E's pushing for the show to get, you know, a healthy amount of seasons, so I don't think that they're not going to be able to bring it all back around to Norman in order for things to logically lead up to the events of Psycho. You know, that's just not going to fly. I'm guessing that they want it to bring it to that place, so at any rate, so this little sneak peek that A&E released is basically a sex tape, you know, thing that all of us were dying to see. Pretty much the only reason why anybody's watching the show, right? I kid. But, so we have this mysterious figure who is silently skulking around through Miss Watson's house as she's in her undergarments and getting ready for the school dance. And you know, the way that they film this little clip is to make us think, oh, could it be Norman? And you know, just sort of playing with the idea that there's this illicit sexual relationship, and to some extent there is, but it's not that way. Whoever this person is appears to be a pre-existing lover of Miss Watson's, and there's this whole kind of mess of things revolving around her character, being that a lot of us are pretty sure that she was having an affair with Bradley's father because of, you know, like the love B, you know, somebody signing off as B on these letters to Bradley's father, and then the necklace that Miss Watson has. So, you know, we kind of Sherlock Holmes it up and sort of put 2 and 2 together. There is definitely an illicit sexual situation going on here, but it's not one between the teacher and Norman per se. And I also recall from the first season that there were some frantic, argumentative phone calls between Miss Watson and some guy, And so I'm guessing that whoever this person is somebody she's with in her sort of web of sexual fun and promiscuity or whatever. And so I have a feeling that this might be the person who's going to be implicated in her crime. And then it's there's also an announcement about how Miss Watson's father is going to become kind of a central character to the season as he seeks vengeance upon the perp who did this. But of course, it's not going to be able to come back around to Norman, at least in the public sphere, in order for things to proceed in any way, shape, or form. I can't see it getting that ridiculous. You know, it's going to get ridiculous, but maybe not in that way. So basically, the film is just sort of playing up that mystery and reminding us of the tension and how things are going to transpire in a most complicated way. So what are you guys' theories about her death? You know, is it generally understood that our beloved little psycho is the guy who axed her, or could... I don't freaking know. I think it's Norman, but I don't think that it's going to come back around to him, and there's some other figure who's going to be implicated, and I can see things going in a lot of different directions, but that's my guess. They can't really bring things to that fever pitch too soon if they want the show to survive, if they want to be able to sustain what's already a really crazy story to try and tackle for the show. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the second sneak peek, which is just a little baby trailer. It's about 30 seconds long. There's a link in the description to that if you want to check that out and haven't seen it yet. I would highly encourage you to do so before watching this, so that way you can, you know, let me know if you see anything else that I don't. But I'll go ahead and break everything down for you in as much detail as I can without being too burdensome. I try not to be. But okay, so I'm going to focus on new footage because inevitably these trailers kind of rehash stuff that's already been around, but I'll talk about the new stuff so we can kind of make predictions from there. So, first of all, this little trailer is set to the tune of Mr. Sandman, that little jazz number by the Quartettes, as covered by Norma Bates on piano and Norman on vocals. And so the lyrics in this little clip that's interwoven into the trailer are, "Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream. Make him the cutest that I've ever seen." I'll go ahead and sing it. "Give him two lips like roses and clover. Then tell him that his lonesome nights are over." And so, you know, we've got this sort of happy, idyllic little duet moment with mother and son, and, you know, dreamy eyes, and everything looks all joyous as much as it could be. But a veil of things to come, I assure you. So I think that it's an interesting choice of song because I think that there's a symbolic significance for Norma, who is, you know, she's striving to pretty much idealize every man in her life save Dylan, and I hope not her abusive brother, who's actually supposed to come into the fray this season. But, you know, so it's like, "Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream." And the way that she's sort of looking at Norman as they sing this together implies that, you know, she is sort of making Norman into this dream and conflating him with this dream of having this motel and, you know, this thriving business in a thriving city. But we all know how it's gonna go. You know, we got quite a bit of precedence to show us that. And then I think there's also some symbolism for Norman as well, as there's sort of this teasing at his blackouts, which are like this kind of involuntary waking dream state, you know. So, "Mr. Sandman, bring me a dream," and well, whether Norman wants it or not, he's getting them, and so that's sort of the way that the writers are trying to explain his madness, is by looking at these blackout states. And what do you guys think of that? I mean, do you think that that's a good device? Do you think that it works as far as explaining the kind of psycho Norman is? I don't know how I feel about it all yet. I'm interested to see how it's handled and if it's done in a convincing way. Whoop-de-doo, it's going to be fantastic and horrible and frightening. All the things I love in life. So anyways, so we see that Next, Norman is hanging in the wildlands with yet another love interest who appears quite happy to disrobe and consummate their little fling. And honestly, as a side note, the whole sex in the woods thing just doesn't make sense in the context of the Pacific Northwest. I live up here, and that it just doesn't sound appealing to me to go out and get naked in the forest. It's kind of cold and wet and damp and awful. I mean, I love living up here, but that just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't really sound like the place to get it done in my book, so hopefully that goes well for them. I'm not one to judge, but I'm not one to shake the pom-poms either. So then we see favorite character ever, Bradley, is making the best decisions of her life, involving specifically boozing and cruising behind the wheel. One-way ticket to success, if there ever was one. And then this scene is followed by a very telling O face from Miss Watson. I don't need to tell you people about the birds and the bees, so I'll just leave it at that. But speaking of birds and bees and things that I don't think these rollicking woodland creatures ever intended for, we see an overly interested Norman approaching Mother's bedchambers. Yet another door left conveniently ajar. And a half-dressed Norma readies herself for something. You know, the usual of Norman's life. Do you envy him or what? And then we see flashes of scrubbing blood, burying bodies, pedestrians rolling over cars. I'm guessing that's our boy Dylan. I'm just gonna put a guess out there. And some sensual mommy-son massages. And notice that in that little scene that's peeked at, that Norma is wearing the same dress that's open-backed as Norman approaches her in the doorway in the earlier scene. You know, I guess discovering that your son has walked in on you is as good a time as any for a back rub, served with a heaping side of incestuous undertones. And then after all that, you know, there's a less than sane looking future serial killer face. You know, he's unwittingly acting the part with great finesse, and that's kind of looking into the whole blackout thing. And then the trailer culminates in Norma assuring Norman that he's a good boy. And I think that she's trying to assure herself more than anyone else, seeing as, you know, acknowledging the alternative would drive an already backcrap bonkers Lady Bates over a whole new edge. So she's trying desperately to cling to this image of Norman as she desires him to be. But I'm gonna say that the reality is not going to play out to her liking. And now that leads us to the longest trailer, which is intertwined with some behind the scenes images, little clips, interviews, stuff like that. And this definitely has some of the most interesting scenes that I really want to hone in on with you guys. And this is all open to discussion in the comments, so please leave your thoughts because I want to know exactly what you guys are thinking about this, just as I'm trying to, you know, figure out where I am on the subject, okay? So let's go in full, in for the kill. So opens up, and we've got Norma saying, Norman, women can be tricky. You know, this being said by the trickiest woman of them all, to the son that's all but riding the crazy wagon to women's doorsteps. And she further adds that Norman has a good heart, and I wouldn't exactly say that she's wrong. You know, a heart, after all, ensures that blood and oxygen successfully circulate throughout the body so as to ensure that you stay alive. But feelings are produced by the brain, and, you know, I would say that that's kind of where sinister activities are afoot. And Norma's not one inclined to think any further than she has to. That's pretty much her short-sighted tactic of survival, is focusing on how good her wonderful little son is. Is, quote-unquote. And of course, Norma's honey sweet claim is juxtaposed with one of Norman's, that there is something wrong with him. But sweetie, any Hitchcock fan could have solved that case for you. I'm just saying. And then next we see Norma peeking around a corner with a voice clip of her asserting that Norman's here but sees things that aren't there, you know, the sort of ghostliness that's going on. She's seeing into the madness that she simultaneously wants to disbelieve. Then we get a flashback to Norman's post-dance encounter with Miss Watson, all leading up to him shouting "stop" after, you know, the words, they're not coming to me. The personification of Mother tells him that he knows what he's got to do. And we all kind of take that to its natural conclusion, but that's something that the show is still kind of withholding as a mystery to us. And then after a replay of Norma's desperate declaration that everything is good, we're taken through a few quick flashbacks of times that were very much not good for pretty much everyone in this coastal city on crack, okay? And then we've got some cast interviews that are peppered with new scenes, including a few glimpses at Miss Watson's funeral. And Freddie Highmore reveals that Norman is obsessed with Miss Watson's death, and Norma is probing Norman on the subject, although the blockades in Norman's labyrinthian psyche still haven't budged yet. So he's not clear on things, and he can't be clear on things because that, you know, heightens the mystery of it all for us. And then we see Norma deeming Norman's taxidermy hobby. It was a little weird in that sort of pseudo-naive way that is distinctly Norma Bates. And then this is followed up by a teaser about what's really going on with Norman as his new girlfriend sees him kind of snap into this alternate reality state, which, you know, we can assume this is where the demons take over his daylight and bid him to do naughty things with knives. And then we're then reminded of the undercurrent of insanity that's afoot in White Pine Bay. I think I'm remembering the town name right. In which, you know, Dylan is still neck deep in this system. Not a pretty place to be considering that his employers are getting pretty trigger happy. And, you know, I wouldn't say that that's going to be the most fascinating portion of the season. Inevitably, it's going to kind of intertwine itself with the psychological stuff. That's really what's got us interested. But, you know, they need a way to kind of, not just to prolong the story, but to add a little bit of meat to it so that way things don't go too fast and they can, you know, make, for them, for the showmakers, you know, they want to make as much money as they can. The storytellers also, you know, they want to construct a universe to fit this one story into. So, you know, so that's kind of the approach that they're taking in this sort of Twin Peaks way. But then we see this intriguing scene of Emma, where she's, you know, she's waking up in somebody's bed, free of her tubes and her clothes. And, you know, I would pose the same question that Queen does, you know, is this real life? Or is this just fantasy? I mean, looks like the morning after panic for our girl Emma, but we're not sure who she's with or she knows who she's with, and, you know. Basically, I fear for her life entirely, period. I don't see things ending so well for her. Sweet as she is and fun though she's been, I think that things are going to be taking some darker turns for her. I can't think of a single person who's not going to be taking dark turns, so, you know, everybody's created equal in this world. Everyone is going equally insane, and there's no escaping it. I think it's just something in the air. I think that some pipe leaked and it's in everybody's systems now. So, gotta strip the DNA to save people in this place, okay? And then another scene that's got me really intrigued is Norma Bates cozying up with the former mayor of Gotham City. You know who we're talking about. And, you know, she's supposed to have a different love interest this season, some kind of upstanding guy of some sort, but, you know, I find their dynamic to be fun. It's kind of ambiguous, and I love how he always is like pushing her off and trying to keep her at bay, but she's still just as crazy as ever, and I think they'd make a cute couple were it not for the fact that she's secretly in love with her son. You know, that puts a wrench in pretty much anything. And, you know, there's more big moments for us adrenaline junkies as Norman dukes it out with Dylan in front of Norma, who I am guessing is probably the subject of this dispute. you know, boys will be boys, but something tells me it ain't just the testosterone going on here. What's interesting is that Dylan's yelling, she's lying, can't you see? Norma lying? Nah, I can't see that ever even being close to reality. Ever. But, yeah, so I mean, the season is pretty much shaping up to be the Bermuda Triangle of morality, and as it appears that Norman is getting sucked into a threesome, and it looks like the chick that he's with is with another guy, macking on him, and the guy's macking on Norman, and I don't know. All right. He's living that YOLO swag life. I just don't really know what to say. And then we see Norma's asking her gynecologist about blackouts. People are getting face smacked, and Norma and Norman are back in bed sharing secrets and just living that family life, family-friendly style. Everyone does, right? And then towards the end, we see that Bradley's antidepressants are working swimmingly. And, you know, Norman will always be there for his mother, who is never gonna get along with Dylan. And bottom line is pretty much that we're in for a doozy as far as everything goes. And nothing is okay ever again. So, as I swallow my hair here, let me know what you guys think about all these trailers and stuff. Again, I've got tons of links in the description for pretty much all the information that you could possibly want about what's going on. My only fear for the show's current trajectory is that it's going to overblow itself, and that the all-out war that, you know, White Pine Bay is pretty much pregnant with is going to really escalate things in a way that's over the top. But I don't know. Again, it's like I said before, I think that they're trying to bring in other storylines to kind of really enrich this universe. And so that way they can maybe, you know, get a couple more seasons from this until things go to their natural conclusion. And I mean, I'm really interested to see how they make ends meet with connecting to the beginning of Psycho, because I'm just not sure. It's quite a challenge they have, knowing where everything is supposed to lead to and trying to figure out how to make things interesting and innovative without overshooting the place they're trying to get to, you know? So that, I mean, that's my concern with the show, but I've been hooked so far, and I know that every episode that I've seen in probably everyone that I'm going to see is going to be very full of exciting stuff. But yeah, so let me guys know what you think, what you hope, what you expect and predict. I got lots of ideas, but basically, sugar, we're going down swinging. That about sums everything up. I mean, man, this season is quite a tall order, and I'm excited for its return. So we're coming back at it in March, and if there's any other big revelations, news bombs, I'll be sure to deliver those right to your doorstep and do the homework for you, because I love you that way. So I'm excited. I'm nervous. I've watched all the trailers quite a few times, and I don't freaking know. We are going to have a party, that's for sure. So I will be back to review the entirety of the second season, as well as Hannibal coming up, other shows I'm catching up on, some video games I'm going to kind of sprinkle in there. I'm back in school, but I'm going to do everything that I can. So, mwah. I have all the love in the world for you. Thank you for watching, and hey, I'll be back before you know it.